everybody, thanks for tuning to another episode of The Spiritual Scientist. I'm Victor Hamza. Thanks for checking me out. I don't know if you can see me at all in this video. Seems like it's pretty dark. Wow, it's been totally quiet here all day, and then start doing a video and all this noise happens. But anyway, how is everybody out there in video land? How are you doing? Hopefully you're doing well. You guys can comment. This is a live one, and I'll talk about whatever you want, and then I'm going to do some other stuff. It's okay if you can't see me. I'm not that good looking anyway. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on. Be interesting, topical as it were. Now in England, if you're from England, you're an English person, you're a mandatory, you're signed up to give your organs. So now you're giving, hopefully this isn't too choppy. Apologize, my Wi-Fi isn't that great. You want to send me money? I'll get better Wi-Fi. So now if you're an English, a citizen of England, you're going to have to give your organ. If you pass away, you die, you can opt out for it. So what you do is I guess, go through a process. I have a couple of English friends that I mentioned this, that they now have it mandatory. It's not a joke. And they were like, well, how do I opt out? So they don't know. Nobody knows. I know people that are very well connected, and they, informed me of this. I said, no, that can't be true. I mean, what are they trying to be, like Canada, taking away all the guns from people? And you know what? They did that in Australia. They took away guns from people, and you know what? The rate of homicide didn't really go down. People still kill each other. They just use knives instead of guns. The reason that we have that Second Amendment is to, is it the Fourth Amendment? Is it Fourth Amendment? I think it's Second Amendment. No, that's freedom of speech. And the right to bear arms is to protect yourself against tyrannical governments. So that's the idea. The idea isn't to, go hunting. So they just lost their marbles up there too. So they lost their marbles. Now England had made it mandatory for people to be an organ donor automatically, and you have to opt out. So supposedly there is a way to opt out. Now I watched a lot of videos. I watched a video I remember a couple of years ago about this doctor who was very well known, older doctor, knew his stuff. I mean, and he was saying that he looked into a lot of cases where people were giving organs, and turned out there was a man who had a car accident. So, he's in the hospital bed, and they're like, well, he's in a coma. We're going to give, we want you to sign these. And he's already signed up as an organ donor. So we're going to be, we just need you to sign this release. We're going to take him off, and we're going to take his organs. And his wife's like, and they didn't do it. And turns out he came out of the coma, and it turns out that he heard everything. So he was flipping out. Imagine they're talking about taking your organs, and you're laying there paralyzed, not able to talk. And this isn't a fake story. That really happened. And he's like, so the people what my point is, the medical community is so excited to get these organs, that if they take a person and they divide you up, and you could look at it, go Google it. I tell people all the time, you don't have to take what I'm saying, even though I do all my research and I talk about not telling a lie or whatever, do your own research, look it up. So see how much is a person in organs worth, and you're up to I think it's $400 and something thousand. The lungs are very expensive. I was the last time I checked. Um, so that's crazy. But so now you're saying, well, the doctor isn't. He'll sign off on it, but is he going to make the money on? No. Well, someone's going to make money on it somewhere, and they're definitely going to make money on it. Stop them. Oh, I got some messages. Stop by, say hi. Uh, I'm the best spiritual. It's Victor, not Vincent, but that's okay. It's basically the same name. Both mean conqueror. As the best spiritual scientist in the world. I was thinking about that. I was going to say online today I was the mad scientist, not the spiritual scientist. But good to see and hear from you. Hope all is well. Thanks. Well, those body parts are really, really important in England. Very interesting. Yeah. Big money, greed, it seems, for people's body parts. There are many cases of grubby hands waiting to pull the plugs and get body parts. Yeah. So if you're going to get in a coma in an accident, don't do it in England. Oh, he's an English bloke, isn't he? Yeah. Oh, let's harvest his organs. That's a bad English. That was more Scottish. Anyway, that's a bad. I broke my broke on that one. But yeah, so that's kind of weird that they're taking your body parts. So mandatory, and a lot of people, I guess, aren't aware of it. I'm sure. Um, well, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to have a disclaimer maybe on your licensing in England, or it's not even going to be. It's just something. It's just like natural now. Everybody, they decide. It's the you're going to do it close. It's not even a pitch. It's just you're signed up for it. If you don't want to do it, then we'll take it away from you. And I said that to somebody that I know today. I said, hey, by the way, they're taking, and he said, oh, that's good. They should do that. Everybody. So I'm like, what? They said, yeah, they should do that. Organs are important. If you're not going to use them anymore, you're dead. What's the difference? I said, well, it's a little more complicated than that. I get it. I get it. I get the other point of view. And I appreciate that. I mean, uh, it's kind of weird because I come from a spiritual side of it. And I heard stories like the people who have like a transplant, then all of a sudden they'll have a psychic, link with that dead person, and they're seeing things that happen with them in their mind. And you hear stories about that too. And you're like, what? Are you taking on someone else's, karma by taking their, spiritual part inside of you? So that's a very strange idea. I mean, in the we eat the body and the blood as the body of Christ. Is that symbolic, or is it really? Do you really believe you're taking that? Now you have the ability to actually take you know people's body parts and put them on you. So that was a new Mandela effect. Here I'm talking about Mandela effects again. Gosh darn it, I wasn't going to talk about it. But one of the new ones I saw today on Once Upon a Timeline, got to give a shout out to that channel. Great channel. Everybody should watch it. It's like the news, only for Mandela effects. And I stay abreast on a lot of this stuff. And when I say stuff, I mean I know about it already, but it's nice to see someone else talking about it, and I see the changes at the same time. Some of the changes I don't pay attention to a lot, and then to hear about it on the channel is interesting. And some of the things I mentioned they never mentioned, and she never mentioned even. Some of the other things I talked about, they never talked about. So we all have our different points of view on everything, which is I value. So anyway, they said that now you could graft organs can be grafted onto people. Now, what organs? I'm talking about limbs. So limbs and hands, you could graft that on someone, and they'll connect the nerves, and then they're working like that they've never had. So if someone's missing an arm, so they'll find a donor recipient. They'll give them the chemicals that lower your a rejection of that limb, and then you're basically, after months and months and months of training, you're using that limb as basically a full limb. So people were joking on her channel this morning, is it like Frankenstein? Basically, yeah, we're getting towards that. So without the electricity, so now you're just taking someone, and let's say, I think it's going to work this way. So if, heaven forbid, your limbs got chopped off, your legs, you lose both legs, they'll find in England now, since everybody's going to be is signed up for it now, someone else dies, I guess that's your blood type and your specifications, and you say, hey, we have the limbs for you. And so they're going to graft those limbs on you, and then you're going to get, I don't know. Do they have free healthcare? I think they do. So now they're gonna just pay for you, and you get upgrades, and you get maybe you get a better piece. Maybe you get better legs. What if the guy was a marathon runner or whatever? Lady, now you got marathon legs. So that's not just coming. Like, that's here now. Like, that's what I'm saying to you. This isn't like coming in the future, that they're able to do this. This is already happening. Like, people are getting their legs and arms grafted with the nerve endings, and now you're able to run around or move your arms. Like, that's been happening, which is, right, mind blowing. So I try not to red pill too many things. Rather, yeah. So just reading a comment that, yeah, it's sneaky. It's the that's in sales. That's a preempt. That's like closing people before they know that they're buying something. You're just like, they'll change a law, and you're like, wait, I was gonna vote. Wasn't I gonna vote if you're Canadian? Weren't you gonna vote? Weren't you supposed to get a vote if they're taking your guns away, like automatic weapons or semi-automatics? Weren't you going to vote about that? Nope, they're just gone. The assumptive close is what it is. So they're just gone. So they yeah, you don't need it. So they're going to just pass laws and everything else, So, which is not cool. Um, and in certain countries, they did take the weapons away. And what do I have to say about that? Well, let's look at in the Garden of Goose. How do I say Gethsemane? I always mangle that. I read it, but then you say it out loud, and you're like, huh? When Jesus was there, right? And then when they came to, when they accosted him, and they took him, basically to the cross. If you recall, one of his disciples was carrying a sword, right? Are you with me so far? And he cut off that guy's ear. And then the biblical story that I recall, I don't know if it's changed or not, but the way it was is Jesus healed the guy's ear, and he had his ear back, which is another thing about regrafting. So Jesus regrafted the guy's ear, and his ear was healed in the story that I read, which perfectly dovetails with this whole theme that I'm talking about. But basically, Jesus's follower was carrying a sword. It's not like he was hanging around Jesus all the time and just happened to have a sword. I'm sure that the disciples that Jesus was hanging around with all the time were mostly always carrying swords, especially when you're going from town to town. You had to protect yourself. So I'm sure Jesus' followers were good with the sword. And it turns out that I'm sure the guy meant to just cut his ear off and not kill him. So that's like, these guys, his disciples were like ninjas with swords. That's what I'm saying. And also what I'm saying now is, if Jesus was going around now town to town, right? His disciples that would go with him would be carrying AK-47s, right? So people just think about it. People put their perspective, on they say, oh, what did Jesus say? I'm not coming, I'm coming with the sword. That's what he said, because he's going to divide households. But yet, they say, oh, Jesus was pacifist, turn the other cheek and all that. Yeah, no, I get it. But if someone's going to, attack you and rob you, Jesus' disciples were caring. I mean, they would have been having, they would have had a sword with them. They would have had an Uzi. Jesus' disciples would have had Uzis and guns and knives. I'm being extreme with it, but you follow me? They would have been NRA card carrying members, is what I'm saying. Jesus' disciples. So maybe that's a little shocking for you to hear that, but it's in the Bible, and you have to, you read the Bible, and it's right there. It's like he was carrying a sword, and he's with Jesus. It's not like he just magically a sword appeared in his hand. So he must have always been carrying a sword, and he's good at it. He only cut his ear off. So you got to think about these things. People don't put their thoughts together. They just really don't. And if you understand, certain things, then they all kind of click together, and you go, oh, wait, I get it. So, but the weird part of that story is how, of course, the miracle was Jesus taking the ear and putting it back on the guy's head, and then it didn't just fall off again, and it was just like healed. But now, what they're saying is that they're able to graft arms and legs. And I'm sure if it was a surgical precision cut now with someone's ear, maybe they could just reattach it. They left out the part where Jesus took his needle and thread out and sewed it, back up. I'm just saying, like, can you see me at all? This is weird. Whenever I go, it's bright on, it's perfect lighting, and I do a video and it gets dark. Like I said, who wants to look at me anyway? So just thought I'd talk about that, and then whatever anybody else wanted to talk about. Suzanne is my top fan. Whenever I do this, she's on it. So thank you, Suzanne, for being here for me. It's amazing. She's always on here. I was talking about this before with somebody today. Like, I have videos that I post, and I'll have like a couple thousand views, and then I get a lot, but then I think about it, and the topic is not beneficial, I think, for most people. I don't want to red pill too many people too much in certain ways, so then I'll delete it. So a lot of times what you're seeing are the videos on my channel that are not as popular, but it's just something that, I'm not going for popularity. I'm going for the truth. So, and to not red pill people too much, or being, negative. So you always have to keep that. I keep that in mind when I do, my videos. So it sounds like I just watched a video for another channel. They talked about, but they talked about parallel universes, and it's just like, you didn't get any new information. There isn't anything out there that, can anybody see me at all? I don't know. Move this video maybe a little bit. I have this glare, I can't see anything. But they were talking about parallel universes, and I talked about that in this channel before, maybe more than once. But I'm not saying, you didn't learn anything else about it. So I didn't find it beneficial, for comedic purposes, perhaps. Wasn't that funny. But, they were saying because of the neutrinos were leaving the Earth, and they're not supposed to be able to go through the Earth. So I said, gee, maybe that's evidence of the universe, although in the article it says that that's probably a high probability against that. So they're not really, you have to look at all, alternatives. And like when they had that, they noticed that star was dimming and not dimming. They said maybe there's a Dyson sphere around it, but more than likely than not, it's just a dust cloud or meteor body. So Dyson sphere. So Dyson sphere concerning a Dyson sphere wouldn't be the optimal way. It would be more of a Dyson swarm, and where you'd be coming up to a Makrashinka brain, which is like Russian dolls within layers. If you were going to build something around a star, that would be able to take the energy from the star. You in some futurists theorize something like a piece of matter would be something like quantum or something of that nature. So every bit of it would be like a working computer that's interfacing with everything. So you take a piece of metal or something, and then it would be converted into part of that quantum or something like that. So the layers would be layered around the star, and that would be, what would you do? What would you do with all that? People understand. Oh, good, you understand Dyson sphere theory. So the Dyson sphere is an outmoded, theory. They went to Dyson sphere, then it's Dyson swarm, and I progressed my thinking to Makrashinka brain, which is like a Russian doll nested. So, on the inside, you have the hot temperature. On the very outside barrier, you have cold space. In between those, you have like convection layers, and in between that, the different dynamic of the temperature would give you the ability to generate energy. You see, as well as the star itself. So now you're getting into multi-layered. That's more, you know, uh, the civilization levels, that's a higher civilization level. I believe that was type 2. And now, if you look at the type civilization, there was only type 5, but now it goes up to 7 and past that with the civilization type. So, if you're interested, I'll give you another idea to look at type civilizations and do a search, and then look at what types of civilizations are there. What would you do with all that power, with a dice? Oh, there. Maybe you could see me better here. What would you do with the power of a Dyson sphere? What would you do? Well, if you had all your brains uploaded into this computer swarm that would be around the star, uh, if you uploaded your brain, what would there be to do after an eon? Um, what would you do? You would probably get bored of everything, and you'd erase your memory and you do a simulation. So, just what else would you do when you were that bored, right? It doesn't. What else would there be to do? You would probably simulate your ancestor simulation, because what else is there to do? You couldn't. You'd just be bored to death, bored to tears, I would think. Who knows? It's only conjecture, but something. Deep Thoughts, right? Deep Thoughts by John Handy. Was it Handy or Handley? John Handley, I think. Deep Thoughts. Beautiful day today. Um, anyway, yeah, Dyson spheres are kind of cool. Dyson swarm, and then the Makrashinka, the quant Utonium was a theorist, had the idea of taking the matter and you make it into smart matter, and then all the smart matter combined. So you take if you had a piece of matter or a piece of smart matter, everybody would be converting smart matter uh, instead of regular matter because you could use it, and then so you deconstruct the planets and deconstruct the solar system just to make this sphere so they could use more computational access to higher levels of thought. So that'll be the driving force of future civilizations. You know, um, what are you going to trade in a future civilization? You're going to trade information. You're not going to trade because they'll have nano assemblers. Not going to trade things. They're going to trade information. That's going to be, or what could you in fact simulate in your computer. If you got it to a certain level, then as basic things get to more complicated things, then you would trade those items to others. So that would be your form of currency, is the what you're simulating. So that actually is the only, for future, I'm talking way deep in the future, that would be the only monetary thing that you could use to trade, would be what you could simulate, what you can figure out your ideas. So what you would do, um, kind of mind blowing stuff. But again, I'm not trying to go too deep down that rabbit hole. I don't like to, like I said, red pill anybody. But with all that said, back to the organ donating, because that's fun. That's a fun topic, right? No, not fun. But if you're going ahead and do that for populace, I would think that you would let them vote. But didn't seem like anybody got a vote. It just kind of happened. So, from my point of view, was that a timeline shift that everybody just seemed to notice, or is it happened? Um, so it seems like a timeline shift, but we'll see. If that ends up being that they've had this for a couple years now, then you're like, wait a second, it just happened on the 20th. Like this was just happened in the news. So, monitor that. If it says, in a year from now, oh, that happened back in 1998, then you're like, wow, that must have been a timeline shift. So who knows? But for now, it's a crazy new law that just changed. Um, so there's a lot of things, and I talked about in my last video that there was the HR, I believe it was 06060606. It came through as there's a patent about the coronavirus, and there was a bill going. Oh, there was a bill going through Congress about the chips um, as well. So I mean, so all these things, what I was saying before is you have to pay attention to them, but you don't want to manifest them either. So you don't want your worry to manifest these things into your reality. We want to stay chill with it. What else do you guys want to talk about? Otherwise, I'm going to sign off. So this is 28 minutes. I usually like to do these not too long. According to the Google algorithm, that's part of YouTube, people only have 8 minutes in their attention span. Otherwise, they can't watch my video. So, you know, I'm 4 times over the limit so far. But I'm going to sign off in a second. I hope you had a good time. Is there anything that anybody wanted to talk about before I sign off? I see 3 people on the channel. I'll stay if you want me to stay. If you want to say something, I'll talk some more. One of my friends wanted me to talk about doing distance healing. That's always a fun topic. Um, I know they always want me to talk about that. I'd like to leave it a little bit of mystery so I don't get too detailed in it. Once you start describing certain things, then too, the reality kind of shifts around it. So it's like the C virus when they try to determine what was wrong with people, what's going on, then it's something else, then it's something else. Now it does this, now it does that. So just don't get it. That's all there is. But one thing I would say is that I teach when I do teach breathing. So can you guys see me? I don't think anybody can see me. That's all right. You'll hear me. So I talk about humps of breathing. So the breathing meditation. So it's breathing. Breathing, as I said, there's a Guru Vivekananda is another person that came out with that said breathing is the only way to reach enlightenment. So your breathing is an integral part of expanding your awareness and your consciousness and raising your uh, you know, vibrational state. So the C virus is the exact opposite. So that's attacking your breathing system, upper respiratory infections, and it's attacking your breathing. But I'm a proponent of breathing. So it's polar opposites. I found that was interesting. That I'm talking. Am I in the light? I'm trying to be. Am I in the light now? I'm not in the light now. But when I am, talking about being in the light of truth all the time, and then the being in the light of truth, but the C virus thrives in the darkness. So if it's actually in certain UVC in the sunlight, it dies. You see? So there's, positive and negative balances in the universe. So if I'm out there, you know, talking about spirituality and breathing, then you're going to have a polar opposite of the C virus, coming out and doing that. So it's a duality in the universe that I see, and I'm looking at going, I want people to be healthy and to do their breathing. And I didn't even invent this one, but it's called the Hoff Message. So you breathe in deep 30 times. People who follow my channel know I talked about this before. You breathe in deep 30 times, in and out quickly, and that helps to reject your body of any virus. So that's one way of being healthy, is to actually do that 30 times in a row. Do it once in the morning, once a night. Maybe you get dizzy when you first start, and then you do it over time and you get better at it. You use it, do it through your nose, do it 30 times, and that stops you from being ill. So I talked about this in my channel before, about how they gave people E. coli. They did 16,000 people. I don't know who signed up for this stuff, but 16,000 participants signed up to have this injection. And the people who did the breathing didn't get sick, and the people who didn't do the breathing got sick. So it's darkness unbeknownst to them as well. Yeah, I had a comment. The CV is like the darkness is trying to hold to this world, and people wearing the mask may be participating with the darkness unbeknownst to them as well. So what, not to steal that, but this did come up, and I thought it was a profound idea that it came up on the other channel that was mentioned before, Once Upon a Timeline. I'm going to give credit where credit is due, and I always do, and I always try to do. I don't want to sound as a Trumpism. I'm always do this. So I'm just always the smartest, No, I'm not coming from ego, but I'm trying to say that she came out and said it seemed like, when you have an ascension symptom, so you would get ill, so you have ascension symptom. So there'd be an ascension symptom, and then you go into recovery. Now, the people who are locked into 2D, I'd be interested in finding out if spiritual people can get the C virus, and if they have gotten it, I haven't heard any studies about that. But I want to know if it's only happening to 2D people and if it's happening to non 2D people. So I've been in groups of crowds of people where everybody will get sick except for me. And before I went to a higher ascension level, I would get sick just like everybody else. And everybody make fun of me. Oh, you got sick again. Yeah, it's going around, it's going around. And then people get sick, and now I don't get sick. So, like, how are you not getting sick? So I detoxified my body, and that made me less toxic so for my environment, so less prone to catching illnesses, and that helped me out a lot. So I'll talk about maybe detoxifying, your body in another video. And I feel like I'm completely dark right now. So in the video, so I'm gonna sign off in a sec. That was fun, wasn't it? So I talked about some good things, and try not to get your body parts taken. And if you do, if you perish and you're doing that and you view it as a positive thing, good for you. And I'm sure the recipient's going to be appreciative. So I'm not telling people not to donate body parts. I'm just saying to look at all the ramifications about that, and you want to be, have that if you do have a coma in a certain situation, you're going to have to. If you're in England watching this, I would, and if you're still on board with donating your organ parts, I would go through a scenario where what are the ramifications? How long do you have to be in a coma to do this? I mean, you really have to drill down on that instead of just going with the herd mentality and saying, oh yeah, 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 because oh yeah, they had the C virus and they're on a ventilator, so now we're gonna take away their organs that aren't affected with the C virus because we're gonna, I don't know how they're gonna do it. Uh, maybe they'll put your organ in the sun for 15 minutes and then put it in a microwave. Oh boy, can't make this stuff up, can you? So they'll do something to your organs, so they'll after they take it from your body, so maybe they could reuse it. You know, so they had coronavirus, but now they don't have it. In the organs. So what's going on there? I don't know. What I'm just saying is be careful out there. Um, you know, and thanks for like, subscribe, share, as they say on these YouTube channels. And I feel like I got completely dark talking about the light, so don't let that be a sign for you. It's just my not caring about the way it turns out. But my words, hopefully, were all true for you. Thanks a lot. Like, subscribe, share. Love you guys. Peace out. Bye bye.